Alright, so we're going to button up this short block. We got our crank built this morning. We got our timing gears installed on there. We have the bearings all on the dowel pins. So you want to make sure you have all your bearings lined up at this point. I like to try to rotate the assembly and make sure it doesn't spit the cam out either way. And it's happy before you waste your time gooping the case up. If it won't rotate here and it spits the cam out, chances are you're going to have to make an adjustment on the cam gear lash, and you can get a plus or minus gear. Normally everything's good to go. A little lubey on the gear. Scraper making noise up there. I rotate it both ways and then rotate it around where you can check your dot one last time. I need a flashlight because I'm blind. Back that up. Can't see. Turn it over one more time here. The gear is lined up there. So we'll go with that. The other thing you want to do is I never put the bearing half over here on this side until I rotate it like that and make sure everything's meshing properly, and then I'll take my bearing and I'll drop it down here, and you want to make sure the bearing doesn't rock. If the bearing rocks, you have an issue. Either the dowel pins aren't lined up or you have the wrong bearing or something's going on. So the bearing should sit in here nice and flat and not move back and forth. So we're going to go ahead and install this on this side of the case half now. Dowel pin in there. Gonna put a little goopy on there. So there's our assemblies rotating. Now we're gonna move over here and put some stuff on the case. You can use whatever you like on this. A lot of guys like the Aviation Permatex. It's okay, but the problem with that is it does eventually go bad and get hard. So I like silicone. So I use. I said you can use whatever you want. This happens to be some Toyota seal, and works pretty good for me. Cat fight. You don't want to get an excessive amount, you know. If it's in the oil pump, it can be a problem, but I'm spreading it pretty thin with my finger here. I don't want to have it not enough either, because oil leaks are no good for me. I know these motor videos are kind of boring. There's, you know, not a whole lot to talk about. And yeah. Anyway, a lot of people just want to watch. I'd rather not have all the jabbing anyway. So anyway, make sure you get plenty of sealer on there. You don't want to overdo it again, but you want to have enough. Oil leaks are a real bummer. That's the problem with the aviation Permatex, seems to get hard before the motor goes bad, and then you have an oil leak. So I don't use that unless they absolutely have to have it. I'm going to put a little bit of sealer in the cam plug channel on the other side of the case. And normally I'll do the back side of the case with a little silicone also on both sides. Just because of the case is going to leak, it's going to happen in the back there. And real thin coat on this other half. Just in the leaky spots. And it just gives you a good tack coat too, so it doesn't spuge out. It sort of sticks to each other. Alrighty. Still got fireworks, I guess. Need a rag. There you go. You recording still? Yeah. We're going to do the cam plug. I want to make sure this cam plug groove's clean and no oil. Because if the cam plug's not nice and happy, it will leak. Right, kitty cat? Here's our cam plug. We're going to install that down here in this case half. And this is personal preference. This is just how I learned. I was always taught to put the cam plug open and out towards the flywheel, and the only reason that is because if it's like this and it's an automatic motor, the torque converter bolt can catch the cam plug and lay the cam plug open. So just get in the habit of putting them like this and you'll never have an issue. So there's that. We're going to lube the top of that. Silicone. I'm going to put a little bit on the other case half too. You want to be real careful when you put the silicone in the cam plug groove not to get it near the bearing, because you don't want the silicone to squeeze into the bearing surface. So I try to keep it on this side of the line of the cam plug. And I think we're about ready to drop this thing together. We got our cam in, it rotated good. We have our bearing in over there now. We have our case lubed up. We got our lifters with a little lube on them. Cam bearings lubed. I'm going to put a little lube on the engine here. And then we're going to go together. So hold your fingers. Give it a little bit of Earl here. I'll give it a little shot on the on the rods. Try not to get it on the mains before you put the case halves together. The other side of this gear. Alrighty. So I think we're good to go. Case half, just double check, you know. A lot of times you can do the rods like this, squeeze motion, and they'll stand up like magic. We got our cam plug in, we got our cam bearings in, our cams in there, we got our main stud seals, our bearings are seated properly, we got our other bearing installed in the case half, we have our lifter retaining clips on the lifters. I think we're ready to drop this together. Okay, smack with the hammer. And these clippers out. And we're gonna put our bolts in. Case half 6mm, 6 main stud nuts. I like to put a little silicone on the bottom of these washers. Again, this is just the way I was taught, and it's been working for, I don't know, 25, 30 years now. So I'm sort of partial to this way. You gotta have rags when you work with silicone or window urethane. Alright, let me get my hands all cleaned up. Keep your hands clean, it's important. I go sealing side up on my nuts. A lot of guys will take the washer off and put these sealing side down. I don't recommend that. But you can do it that way because I've seen guys do it. There was a guy, Richie's VW, did it like that for years, and every time we'd get one of his motors over at Scooters in, we could tell because it had no case washers and the nuts were upside down. So it's sort of a preference thing, I guess, but this is the correct way, I think. You're going to do it this way. Volkswagen doesn't use the self-locking nut. They use just a regular nut with a regular washer, and the stock nut's 17 millimeters and this one's 19, so it's a little nicer nut and seals a little better. All that good stuff. Just snugging these down, we'll torque these. These actually get torqued to 27 foot-pounds also. Let me get my pulley, make sure it still turns over. This is always a good time to make sure it rotates. There we go. And make sure your crankshaft moves back and forth so you can set the end play. So you should have back and forth movement, which we do, and you set the end play by the back of the motor there. So there we go, that one spins really nice. We'll go ahead and put the rest of our hardware on here. Did I mess the camera up? Yeah. Spring washers are what you should probably use. That's what they call for. I've seen a lot of guys use different stuff, but I prefer the spring washers on the German stuff, and that's what it comes with. By all means, try to use them. Lock washers don't work really good on aluminum because they gouge into the case. These two back here are the cam journals. I like to put a little sealer under those. Just put a little silicone on there and put the washer down, and that's usually sufficient. Johnny Marks uses sealing nuts there. Probably not a bad idea. He uses the oil pump nuts on those two holes. And, if you're going to have an oil leak from a stud, it'll be one of these two. Alright, now that I have silicone all over that rag, it's no good anymore. Contaminate another rag. Microfiber towels. You guys will love that. Alright. Normally I use new hardware. This is an Econo motor, so it gets cleaned hardware. These are new. But the 13s are going to be used. I don't think it'll hurt anything. You can use lock nuts if you like. A couple companies sell some nice hardware kits. If you're going to use an aluminum case, I suggest buying a hardware kit because the hardware that comes with the cases it's barely magnetic. It's such poor quality. So don't depend on making sure I had a washer in there. Should be a washer under every nut. Go ahead and snug these up and then we'll start the torquing. These small ones are 18 foot-pounds, so don't get carried away with these. There's not a lot of torque on the outside. Like I said, the main studs are 27. You can look your torque specs up online, or you can get a. We always use the out guesswork book at Scooters, and they used to be available at the dealerships. I don't think so anymore. I was lucky enough that VW Rich passed his on to me, so I have some of those. I keep them inside though in a safe place with the YouTuber stuff. That means a lot to me. So it's nice to have them to go refer to them if I'm doing training work, but to have them in the shop, they're a little too fragile. And the name of those again it's called Without Guesswork, and Volkswagen put those out. It was a couple books they had for their transmissions, different motors, and they have all the different torque specs that you would ever want in there. Alright, now we're going to switch over to 18 foot-pounds for the small hardware. Get that torqued up. I left the bolts out next to the oil pump so I can install that later. You don't want to put that hardware in and then beat the oil pump in. Torque on this. Alright, I think that's about it. That concludes the short block. We'll get some more stuff together and build the piston cylinders. Got to balance those, put the heads together, and I'll turn the camera back on. So that's short block number 2. That's 2 to go. I'm going to do this bus motor. We got a bug motor, and then we're going to put the 2110 together. So that'll give us a couple engines there. The only other thing to add is if you're going to torque the bolts and stuff, make sure that you don't put an extension on your torque wrench, because it'll change the torque reading. And I see a lot of guys put extensions on and start torquing stuff down, and that can lead to disaster. And HO Motorsports left a comment the other day about rod bolt stretch, and we'll get into the rod bolt stretch thing when we build the 2110. It's real critical if you're using an ARP bolt to torque it by stretch and not by foot-pounds, because you can tighten the bolt and it won't have enough stretch on it to hold the bearing in the rod. And that's how a lot of people have those cranks go bad. You know, the scat rods and the billet cranks. They put the good rods on there and torque them down to 38, 40 foot-pounds, sink the bolts tight, and it doesn't have enough stretch on the bolt, and the motor blows up, and that's never a good thing. So anyway, the camera's stuck on the stand, and I think I'm going to go ahead and turn it off here. Hope that helps somebody. I don't know. Might be a really crappy video, but some people are looking for them. I know some guys are building stalkers, and if it helps one guy, then it's worth making a video. So thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. If you did subscribe, if you didn't subscribe, please push the subscribe button there. So like, hate, subscribe, and have a great day.